What up, nerds? My name is Leslie Smith. Welcome to the Nerdy Narrative. It is Friday. That means it is time for a weekly reading wrap-up where I talk to you guys about all of the things that I read, what I'm still reading, and what I plan to read next. Before we get into the books, I do have a couple of shout outs. I have 2 new patrons to my Nerds Radiant tier, which is my top tier. So I want to give a huge thank you to Stacy and also to Tara. Both of these ladies have channels of their own. I will have those linked in the description box down below. Show them some love. I just can't express enough my gratitude for my patrons. You guys are allowing me to have so much fun doing stuff for the channel. I do have a new project in the works. More on that in the new year. Let's talk about what I read. So first up, I read on my Kindle. I have a physical copy on the list to be ordered, but that was The Secret Life of Bees by Sue Monk Kidd. Guys, this book was so good. I didn't even make it off the first page before I was in love. I didn't make it out of the first chapter before I was on Goodreads, adding everything I could find by Sue Monk Kidd to my want to read. And I also made a note to make sure I ordered myself a copy for my personal library once my monthly budget resets for book buying. Guys, this book is amazing. It is a book I feel the majority of readers would really enjoy or benefit from reading. But I do have a vlog coming out on the channel soon about this book. And so I'm gonna leave it at that. Keep an eye out for that vlog. I recently decided I wanted to try reading vlogs again on the channel. I hit my patrons up about it. I was like, all right guys, here's my TBR. I want you to choose a couple of books that you would like to see a reading vlog about. And the 2 books that won were The Secret Life of Bees and The Fall of Babel. So The Secret Life of Bees vlog is going to be very illuminating as to how that went. Alright, so next up on what I read is Flesh Rehearsal by Brayden. I had an amazing time with this story. I just absolutely love reading about serial killers. I love watching documentaries about serial killers. I mean, the other night, I was 30 pages from finishing a really good book, which I'm going to talk about next. I was so excited to read the conclusion. I sat down in my reading chair, I got snuggled up, I read a couple of pages. My husband walks in the living room. He's like, hey, you want to come snuggle and watch one of your serial killer shows? Put that bookmark in that book and I was gone. I just don't know why I'm so fascinated. I think it's because I want to know why. I want to know what it was to cause that person to do the things that they did. The majority of the time, we don't get that answer. But when we do, it's always so different and unique to that person and just the causes of it. I'm just fascinated. So when I saw that Brayden had a new book coming out, I wanted to read it because I've been wanting to read Brayden Boyer's work. He's an author that has been on my list for a long time to read something by, and I had some scheduled for him in the coming months, but then this one came out and it had a serial killer in it and I was sold. Brayden Boyer's prose, at least so far as Flesh Rehearsal, because I have not yet read any of his other works, but this particular book, it is written very matter of fact. He does not waste words. He does not over embellish. He gets the story on the paper. If you read Chad Nicholas, they are very similar in their prose. Even though it's matter of fact, easy to read and digest, there are some conversations that the characters have that are so intellectually stimulating, interesting, and the things that are discussed, while they are very highly intelligent, they also talk about it in a way that you or I would speak, so it is easy for you, the reader, to understand and follow along. I just really enjoyed that. When a book is this fast-paced, I want it to be something easy to read and understand because I want to be able to keep up with that breakneck pace because there's a lot of action in this one. There's so much going on. There's a handful of different characters with their own storylines that are all really good, really interesting, and you just want to read about them all at once. But the main gist of Flesh Rehearsal, it is about a teenager named Gretchen. She has lost her entire family. She is now an orphan. She's 18. She hits the road. She's at the gas station with her suitcase, waiting on a ride, when another couple of teenagers, siblings Jacob and Amelia, pull in. They end up making small talk. They hit it off. They decide to road trip back to LA. In the course of this, they find out they're all musically inclined. Gretchen is a singer and songwriter. Jacob and Amelia can play just about any instrument. They're the son and daughter of a very, very famous rock star who is now deceased. And they just hit it off. They start making music together. They take Gretchen's tragic past and write songs from it. You know, they share the loss of a parent. They also share a love for music, and it just seems that fate would have it they would make an amazing band together, and so that's the plan. So Flesh Rehearsal is telling us the story of the three teenagers as they work together to write music, make music, and become a band. Now, in the midst of all of this, LA is plagued by a serial killer called the Lobotomizer, and that's where the fun comes in, because I spent the whole book trying to figure out who the serial killer was. I didn't want to go with the obvious choice, so I had my sights set on somebody else, and then I was like, no, it is the obvious choice. And I was like, no, maybe it's this person. And I'm like, nah, this person. Y'all, I will say somewhere in that waffling, I did have the right one picked for a moment, but for some reason I had changed my mind. It was so fun. I just really enjoyed Flesh Rehearsal. I can't wait to read more by Brian Bowyer, just get more of a feel for him as an author. So be looking to hear more about him on the channel. Final book that I read this week is Ungodly by Brayden Riddick. Heidi Locke, you are amazing. Heidi sent me this book. I had not even heard about it until she sent it to me. Once Heidi sent me a copy, I started hearing lots of other booktubers and reviewers talking about it, and they had nothing but good things to say, and I can see why. This is a standout read of the year for me. It's the debut novel of Brayden Riddick. It is self-published. This book read like it was professionally edited. I was searching for errors. Just one, just something. There had to be one. It could not literally be this perfect. It just couldn't. I found no misspellings, no glaring, obvious grammatical errors. Everything made logical sense. Everything got explained and fleshed out. It was written beautifully. Brayden's prose was amazing. There's so much to love about this book. First of all, I love these type of stories. Now that I've read it, I would definitely say it is horror leaning heavily over into science fiction with a little kick towards the supernatural. I just absolutely loved it. I loved the characters. The characters, you know, normally in horror, I don't get attached to characters because I feel that I'm going to lose them. You know, I'm just one that I automatically assume in horror stories, everybody's going to die except one person, and sometimes it might not be the obvious person that I'm picking to stay alive. So I try not to get attached. These characters felt so real. Another thing that I love about the characters, they talk using today's terminology. This book is very current. There was some really great humor that did not feel forced. It felt natural. It sounded exactly like something I would say in the given situations that it took place in. There's also a splash of romance involved, but again, it did not feel out of place. It did not feel rushed. Sometimes when there is love and horror, everybody feels it's just a convenient plot device or it's just too sudden. This felt so real. It was just done so well. The things that were happening here, what was behind it, I felt made logical sense. It was explained very well. We got a resolution at the ending. There is nothing wrong with this book. Nothing. And when I read the author's note at the end, Brayden said he's had this manuscript for years and he had just set it in a drawer, never really intended to do anything with it. Instead of Ungodly, it was just going to be unpublished. And he asked for reviews. He was like, what do you think? Should it have stayed in the drawer? Once you read it, I would love to know what you think. Do you think it should have stayed in the drawer? No, Brayden, dump that drawer out. Is there anything else in there? I want to read it. I will read anything Brayden Riddick puts out. It was done so well, so deliberate, so methodical, and the logic from point A to point B. I loved it. Now that I've been raving for 5 minutes, I guess I could tell you a little bit of what it is about. It's about Palisade Mountain College. It's a small community that's on a mountain. It's pretty secluded. And one night, College student Amanda Baker is in her room. She sees a strange red light coming from one of the abandoned dorms next to her. So she goes up to her window to get a little bit of a closer look to see what's causing it, and she sees a figure that is illuminated towards the top of the building. And as she watches, there's some other things that happen, but I'm going to leave those a secret till you read it. But as she's watching, the person jumps. So Amanda calls to report a suicide. There's no body. So now she's being investigated for making a false police report. And that is the event that sets off a whole lot of other unexplained events in this town, and it's just fantastic. This book was so fun. A buddy read it with my friend Sharon Dwyer, and we just had the best time. And it was funny because we got started on it and we just couldn't put it down. She and I both read several books at a time. This was the only book for us. When we started reading it, we just did not want to stop, and we just blazed right on through to the end. Phenomenal, phenomenal. And then I also finished a couple of more short stories in Stephen King's Night Shift. I finished I Am the Doorway as well as Night Surf. Night Surf was okay. It's definitely not my favorite in the collection so far. However, I know that it is related to Stephen King's The Stand, so I might enjoy it or appreciate it better once I've read that book. So I will go back and reread it afterwards, because I don't know if I would have loved the first story, Jerusalem's Lot, so much if I had not already read Salem's Lot, if that makes sense. The other short story I read, I Am the Doorway, was stellar. I think it's the first time I've read something where Stephen King leaned into this science fiction side of horror. And I can tell you, if that short story had ever been turned into a book by him, I would be eating that up. And that's everything I completed. As far as what I am still working on, I started A Little Hatred by Joe Abercrombie yesterday. And I'm 140 pages in. I am having the best time. A Little Hatred is the first book in the Age of Madness trilogy, which is part of the First Law world. I wasn't sure how they were going to connect, and I can definitely see why you must read the previous trilogy and the standalones, or you're not going to get some of the connections here. And I am so excited. I cannot say anything about it really, because if you haven't read the prior books, it would totally spoil things for you as far as characters who may or may not still be around. But my level of enjoyment, especially with some new characters in relation to some of my old favorites, I think this is going to be my new favorite. I am absolutely loving it. As with all of my previous Abercrombie books, I am reading it with my friend, the cat lady Book Nook Penny. I sincerely hope Penny is having as much fun with it as I am. It's been really interesting to see the changes in this world as progress is starting to make itself known, industry is getting introduced. Oh, it's just, I am very excited to read this trilogy, but I'm going to be so sad when it's over. So sad. That's all I'm currently reading. I know that I'm normally reading like 5 or 6 things at a time, but I really got focused on Flesh Rehearsal, and that was all I wanted to read. And then I went into Ungodly, and that was all I wanted to read. And now that I've started A Little Hatred, that's all I want to read. The books are too good for me to share my time with other books. So I've been pretty book monogamous this past week. I don't know if that trend will continue, but if I do get the hankering to work something in the rotation with A Little Hatred, it will be Timothy Zahn's Lesser Evil. This is the 3rd book in the Thrawn Ascendancy trilogy. It is the conclusion. I'm excited, but I'm trying to keep my expectations low. The first book in the trilogy was amazing. The second book was a snooze fest. I'm hoping he redeems the series with this book. So this one is definitely up next. And then once I finish A Little Hatred, my next fantasy read will be book 2 of the Iconoclast series by Mike Shell, Sin Eater. This is part of a read-along that I am doing with Andrew's Wizardly Reads, but I'm very excited to see where this story is going to go next. I have some ideas, but I'm probably wrong. I usually am, so I'm really excited to get into this one. And so that wraps up everything I've read and what I'm still reading and what I'm planning to read next. What about you guys? What are y'all reading right now? Or have you been getting started on your Thanksgiving preparations? I can't believe next week is Thanksgiving already. We currently don't have any plans. I'm not sure what we're gonna get up to. Probably just be some reading and pulling out the Christmas decorations and getting that going. Do you guys have any fun traditions that you do on Thanksgiving that you want to share? Let me know in those comments down below. Guys, have a fantastic rest of your day. I hope you have a wonderful weekend getting ready for the holidays next week, and I will see you in the next one.